All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is July 30th. We got ourselves a Sunday jam-packed of MLB games. We're going to jump into each one of them on today's slate. I'll go through the games, give you my thoughts, give you my lean or leans on the games. But as always, my final plays, those will be in the pinned comments. So make sure to keep an eye on that. Yesterday we go 1 and 2, and looking back at the leans for yesterday's video, I'm like, why didn't I just play every single game? We had a good day lean wise. The 3 final plays we had, another negative night. So that means 4 of the last 5 nights here were just dropping units. But nonetheless, Blue Jays are our only success of the day. Guardians and Red Sox do let us down there. Our ride of the day, though, does come through from Douglas. Let's go. Let's get the applause in there with the Yurfie. Yes, a run in the first inning in the Reds and Dodgers game. We had to sweat it out, but it ultimately went ahead and cash. So shout out to Douglas there, guys. If you do want to be the ride of the day, all you got to use is drop a banger of a pick and use hashtag ride of the day in the comments. And I'm jumping on board with one person's pick and then riding with you and giving you a shout out in tomorrow's video, win or loss. And because Douglas came through, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna go ahead and offer a nice little discount over on the Fade Me store, guys. If you haven't checked out the Fade Me store, it is our brand over here. Make sure to go check it out. Link will be in the description as well as the pinned comment. Tons of new products, but what we're doing there to celebrate the ride of the day caching so you can thank Douglas is we're doing a 25% off discount code with just saying ride in the promo code selection at checkout. So the code is ride, R-I-D-E. If you could spell that, you can get 25% off over on the store, guys. No minimum, no restrictions, just 25% off your order with the code RIDE on fademe.store. Only good for today. Maybe we'll do that a couple more times when we hit ride of the day to kind of like celebrate with the community and whatnot, but go use it today. I don't know when the next time we will ultimately end up using it, but let's go ahead and jump into game number 1 in this slate. Actually, first, we're not jumping into it until you subscribe, until you hit that like button, until you comment your favorite plays of the day and use that hashtag ride of the day. Now you've done that. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead. Game number 1 here. We're looking at is Toronto taking on the Angels. So far in this series, Toronto has been, I guess we could say, dominant. 4-1 in game 1, 6-1 yesterday. Again, it was our only win of the day yesterday. On the mound for Toronto today is Jose Barrios going up against Tyler Anderson. Both these guys actually have been pitching well in their last few starts here. I think Tyler Anderson had a bad start, or his most recent start actually wasn't all that great, but nonetheless, still keeping that ERA at 2 flat over the last 5 games. And Barrios has a 1.8 ERA over his last 5 games here, which obviously is a little bit different than Anderson's 5.2 on the season, and then Barrios is 3.4. But even though, you know, Toronto is heavily juicier, you can actually get a -185 over on MGM, so the graphic is a little outdated. The odds are getting a little bit better here. I think they are a little juiced, but I still think they are the play, because looking into this, looking into the matchup, the only thing that would keep me off of Toronto, or I should say 2 things. One would be the odds, because it's a lot of juice to be paying. Maybe it's just a Toronto or pass type spot, but also the fact that, like, this is a sweep situation. You know what I mean? It's like, what are the odds that they sweep type of thing, which isn't the best like analytical route to be taking or angle, but nonetheless, I think everything points to Toronto. They bat lefties really well, 316 in their last 10 games here, almost 6 runs per 9, and obviously Tyler Anderson is a lefty there today. So everything tells me look at the Blue Jays, but I don't know if I can, come to terms with that price tag and the idea just in my head that, this is a sweep situation. Do they really sweep the Angels? So yeah, I'm not exactly, I wouldn't say I'm over the moon in terms of this spot, but I do think that this is a Toronto game, at least from the numbers side of things. In terms of the total, I don't mind the over 9.5 here. You'd have to look back to April 8th when these two pitchers went up against each other. Through 4 2/3 here, Anderson let up 5 runs on 7 hits, and then Barrios actually only pitched 4 innings and let up 4 runs himself. So we have 2 guys that pitched against each other already this year and let up plenty of runs. So I lean towards the over as well. But again, my main lean would be Toronto, but don't know if I can pay that price tag. All right, next up, we got Pittsburgh taking on Philadelphia. I like Chris Sanchez on the mound for Philly. Don't necessarily like the pitcher, but he has been pitching well over his last few starts. The team is giving him very little run support, but he's still got a 1.6 ERA in his last 5 starts, and he's pitching nearly 6 innings per game here. So I do like the Phillies on the money line at -144. They bat lefties well, who the Pirates are trotting out a lefty in Rich Hill. He really, he's been middle of the road, 3.4 ERA over his last 5-year on the season. His ERA is sitting right at 4.82 in his last 3.5 flat ERA. So it's like he's been middle of the road. He's just, one of the kind of a throw-in pitcher for a year, whereas Christopher Sanchez is trending in the right direction. So I'm going to take him. And then in terms of a total, this is where I think it really does, where I do think that I like this play a lot. It's going to be the under 9.5 here. These two teams, yes, they put up 13 runs as a unit yesterday in a 7-6 win for the Pirates. But over the last 10 games or so, you can go back to both these teams individually, and usually after a good game, there is sort of a setback game. So I'm hoping that is the case, and also hoping that Sanchez can go out there and kind of keep this Pirates offense muted, because if he can, it's going to make this job a hell of a lot better. So give me Philadelphia here on the money line, as well as the under 9.5. I do think that, these offenses have had their little sprouts and spurts of being really good, right? But you look back at the last 10 for these, like I said, you see a 7-6 game, you're anticipating a 2-3, 3-2, type of game the next game. All right, next we have Atlanta taking on Milwaukee. I have not pulled the final trigger on one of these yet, but I've been loving the overs. Unfortunately, today we have an 11.5 here, so it is kind of tough to look at 11.5. That is a very high line, but I do still think that this is going to be a high-scoring game. I'm not trusting either one of these pitchers all that much here. You have Smith Scheuer on the mound for the Braves, and then on the mound for Milwaukee, Rhea, who both these guys, can pitch well, but that's like as much rope as I'd give them. These guys are not too big of studs out there. So give me two offenses that are scoring, even Milwaukee, their floor right now is like 4 runs, which is more than it was a month ago. And you have Atlanta, who obviously their floor on any given night can be like 42, right? So give me the over here. I don't love much else just due to the odds, Atlanta being such heavy favorites and Milwaukee really not playing up to Atlanta standards in this series. So just give me the over. It's either the over or pass, but that 11.5 is going to take a lot of convincing post-show to be able to pull as a final trigger or final play, pull the trigger on the final play. All right, next up, we got the Mets taking on Washington. I was this close. So this is what I was talking about when my leans were good yesterday, right? I was literally this close, like finger away from pressing submit for a Washington plus 178 yesterday on the money line. We don't pull the trigger on it. They end up winning 11-6, but nonetheless, you can't cry over that type of thing, because if I was that much more confident in it, I would have pulled the trigger on it. So there's a little bit something in the back of my brain being like, don't do it. But today they're heavy underdogs yet again, plus 225. I'd still say that's probably where the value is in this series, but you do have Verlander on the hump for the Mets today, who was pitching well, really, as of late, but definitely at home. He's got a 1.2 ERA over his last 5. The team is 4-1 in his last 5 starts here as well. So shout out to him. But really, it's more or less in his last 3 starts here he's been going off. He's got a 1.8 ERA in his last 3 as well. I know 1.2 over the last 5, but that's including a shutout game there against the Giants. So I'm kind of throwing that out. If you look at his last 4, way better competition, playing the Dodgers, playing the Yankees, who make your argument there, playing a White Sox team and the San Diego team that both are playing well at the time. Giving Verlander credit where it is due, but I still think that's way too high of a price tag, minus 250 to pay for the Mets. And I don't really think that, minus 125, I would trust them on the run line either. So I'm going to look at Washington. You could even maybe take the safety of 1.5 for plus 110, but if you're going to bet Washington, you might as well take them on the money line. I don't think that they're like a keep it close type game, especially when their bullpen gets going. Their bullpen starts to dwindle, not the best there. So maybe a Washington side or pass for me in this one. Total sitting at 8.5 runs. Yes, we did see a high scoring game yesterday, 11-6, but you do have Verlander on the mound. And if I think he's going to continue this trend, he's going to keep this Washington offense down. And I don't think this Mets offense is all that incredible, right? So I'm looking at the under in this one, 8.5. I would say look for it at 9. I've seen it flicker between 9 and 8.5 all morning. So if you could get at 9, even better, but 8.5 I'm still pretty comfortable with. All right, Miami taking on Detroit, and I can't believe I'm saying this. I am going to lean towards the Tigers in this one. They take the 5-0 win yesterday. They even kept it close in game number 1, even though it was a 1-run loss. They have Scuball on the mound for them today, which is like, yeah, I don't trust him to, as far as I could throw him right. Going up against Jesus Luzardo. So there is certainly a pitcher discrepancy here, but nonetheless, Detroit trotting out Scuball. I don't even know if I say his name right. Scuball, whatever. Screwball on the mound here. It'd be great if he threw a screwball. That's kind of like a miss there, don't you think? That guy should have learned to throw a screwball immediately. But nonetheless, you have Miami on the mound going up against a lefty who, on the year, looking good, batting .299 against lefties, right? But in their last 5 here, 179 against lefties. So this line, I think, is a little skewed towards Miami because of those season-long stats here. They bat lefties well, but not really looking like they are as of late. And Detroit, in their last 5 games here, batting .295 against lefties. So it might be kind of crazy. In fact, we can sound the psycho alert alarm because I don't like this Detroit team. I think they stink. but I'm going to lean towards them for plus 125 here on the money line. And then in terms of the total, you have a 7-run total, and it's like, wow, that is just asking you to go and pull the trigger. We saw an 11-run game in game number 1. We saw 5-0 yesterday, meaning if Miami just scored a couple runs, we're at this total. So I am going to lean towards the over, but man, oh man, is this just a bait spot. I can feel it being a trap. So we'll see if we pull the trigger on it, but I do look at this and say, you know what, they can easily score. You know, this could be a 5-4 game, a 4-4 at the minimum, and then obviously any run there, who cares, right? So I like the over, but I don't know if we end up pulling any triggers on this game. It is kind of a crappy matchup. All right, Houston taking on Tampa Bay here. This has not been a bad series like the one above that we talked about here. Houston getting a big 17-4 win yesterday. Taj Bradley only goes about 3 innings here. Tampa Bay obviously takes game number 1. So now you're in a spot where you do have these two teams. You know, they're kind of going back and forth. And I do like Tampa Bay on the money line today, but my main lean is actually going to be the under 9 runs here. So on the mound for Houston, you have Brandon Balick, and it's like, okay, he's not that great, right? But he's been pitching well. And then on the mound for the Tampa Bay Rays is going to be Zach Littell. He's been pitching well over his last few starts as well. Now, he honestly is just a guy that you're going to throw in there and get 2 innings out of, so I don't want to put too much weight into him overall, but this Tampa Bay bullpen has been pitching really well as well. So their available bullpen today is a 2.59 ERA, and even in their last 3, they're looking at a 4 flat ERA, which we'll take, especially compared to what you're looking at from Houston, who you hope, you know, I guess you'd hope the starter goes a little bit more, Balick, on their side of things. So, you know, I'm kind of weighing him pitching well, and he's going to give us 5 innings or so. You hope that Littell comes in, or Little does his thing, pitches, you know, maybe 2 innings at a slow, you know, not allowing many runs, and then the Tampa Bay bullpen can come in and kind of do what they've been doing. So I'm leaning towards the under 9 here as my main lean. But if I had to, you know, to pick a side here too, I'd also like Tampa Bay, because I just feel like a 17-4 win yesterday, like the Astros have to feel to some degree like, oh, okay, that was a big game, right? And it's hard to get back to that, whereas Tampa Bay feels like they got rocked. Hopefully they have a chip on their shoulder. Now, I say that, but this Tampa Bay team hasn't really proved to have a chip on their shoulder for any means. You know what I mean? They've been stinking as of late as one of the best teams in the league. You'd think their chip on the shoulder would have kicked in like a month ago, but nonetheless, I do like the under as my main lean, and then I'm looking at Tampa Bay on the money line as a potential play as well. Royals taking on the Twins, and I don't know what's going on, but Twins have lost 2 here. They lost 8-5 and 10-7. Like, they haven't even really, at least final score, box score wise, right, kept these games close. They're minus 165 on the money line today, and I guess I lean towards Minnesota, but I don't know if I can trust it, which is so crazy. Like, in what world are we looking at a Minnesota team at minus 160-ish odds? You're like, oh my God, I'd be usually drooling at that against the Royals, but somehow this Royals team, I'm like, I don't know if I want to pull the trigger, just because they clearly have Minnesota's numbers. And Minnesota against lefties, who the Royals have Yarbrough going today, he is a lefty. Minnesota on the season, not batting lefties very well. Only averaging 3 runs per 9, 216 average, 2.4 hits per game. Then you look at it in the last 5, it gets even worse. Not batting at all well against lefties. In their last 10, they're batting .045 as a batting average. And this is the team that I'm leaning today. I don't know. I'm a psycho. Real play, though, I could see this being a final play, is going to be the under 9 runs. Now, Kansas City, you just can't expect they're going to score 8 runs, 10 runs, 8 again today? No way. So give me the under, even if Kansas City can go out there and win this game. I think they win it as like a 4-1 or, you know, 5-2 type game where it's got to stay under that 9. I don't think that they can keep up this crazy offense, which even 5 would be a stretch in my brain for them today. So give me the under 9 in this one. But yeah, I might be a little crazy with this Twins lean, because clearly Kansas City just has their number. I could totally see the Twins flopping yet again, because they're like down in their dumps, right? Like, they expect to lose this game now. Crazy. All right, guys, next up we have Chicago, the White Sox taking on the Guardians. Guardians, one of our losses yesterday. They've taken the last 2 games in this series. This is the 4th of 4. You know, Cleveland wins that first game. That was our only play back when there were only a couple games on the slate. And now they've lost the next 2. But I do lean towards Cleveland this one. They're in a bounce back spot here. I love everything I'm seeing. I truly do believe they're the better team, even though, you know, this series wouldn't indicate that. But they have the better pitcher on the mound as Aaron Savale takes on Michael Kopech. They have the better bullpen. They're batting righties better than the White Sox are, which both these pitchers are righties. Give me the Guardians here. Strong chance to be a final play, just looking at the fact that, we lost them yesterday. Hopefully they can make it up for us today. But in terms of a total, I don't really have much of a lean on this one. I'm going to lean towards the over, but again, my main lean, I'm pretty strong on it, is going to be the Guardians here on the money line at -140. Before we get on to the next game, guys, go ahead and drop number 14 in the comments if you made it past the 14-minute mark. It is my favorite number 14. So this, you better juice it. If you're listening to this and you don't comment 14, you either hate me or you're just a hater, right? Or you just woke up on the wrong side of the bed, which if that's the case, it's all good. But you know how you can make it better? Hitting the like button, subscribing, and commenting 14 in the comments. Let's go ahead and move on, guys. Comment 14 for the Guppies, though. Screw the Guppies. There's been a lot of Guppies as of late. Yikes. Yikes. Comment 14. All right, St. Louis taking on Chicago, and honestly, didn't put too much time into this game because it just seems simple to me. I don't know if it becomes a final play, but you're going to give me the Cubs yet again, +120 here on the road, on the money line, and they've won their last 6 games against this St. Louis team. They just have their number, and it's not like they're trotting out a bad pitcher today. They are trotting out Kyle Hendricks, who I trust against the St. Louis team. They won the last time that he pitched against them, but it was last year, so don't want to put too much into that. But nonetheless, the Cubs batting lefties well. Steven Matz on the mound for St. Louis. The Cubs on the season, averaging almost 6 runs per 9, a 255 average here. So give me the Cubs yet again. They're playing good baseball as well. But, does it become a final play? I will say this, probably not, because at some point, I'm a big believer in the wheels falling off at some point. I can smell and sniff out, fraudulence. And this Cubs team isn't like this good now. I think they're a good team. The guys are playing well, but they've won 9 of their last 10 games. They've won 8 straight games, and this is going up against a team that they've absolutely owned. Could you convince me, if we talked long enough, that, hey, this would be the spot where they drop one? You know what I mean? Like, are they really going to sweep the Cardinals again? Are they going to keep playing this good? If you were to talk to me long enough, I'd be like, oh man, probably in my own head about it, and maybe not. So I don't think this becomes a final play, but you can't deny the fact that the Cubs have just owned the Cardinals, like owned them as of late here. Not even as of late. Dating back to like the beginning of the year, right? But in terms of a total 9 runs here, we've seen plenty of overs, plenty of unders here, but plenty that land on this line as well in the last 10. They're 3, 4, and 3, so overs, unders, pushes. I'm going to lean towards the under ever so slightly, but I could see this being a high-scoring game as well. So kind of splitting hairs on this one. I'm probably on the fence, probably not pulling the trigger on the total. If anything, like I said, it's going to take some convincing for me to really get through that sort of superstition of when the wheel's going to fall off. I would lean Cubs plus 120, but we shall see. Keep an eye on the pinned comment. Regardless, I think there's value there. It's more or less, do I think the Cardinals finally win one type of thing. All right, Colorado taking on Oakland this Sunday night. Oh, this isn't the Sunday night baseball game. Okay, sorry. I thought this such an instant classic of a matchup, but all right, Colorado taking on Oakland. Only thing that I would look at here is probably the under, but that hasn't even cashed all of this series. So yeah, don't want to spend too much time and waste too much time on this trash game here. 12.5 is a high number, but they've hit over in both of the games in this series thus far. So if you like the over, go ahead and take it. The altitude gods and the altitude, truthists are out there today. So nonetheless, I'm still going to lean towards the under because I don't believe in these offenses, regardless of science, I guess. But baseball on bat doesn't seem like a science to me to some degree. So I'm going to lean towards the under, but I doubt that becomes a final play. All right, San Francisco taking on Boston. We do have updated odds here right now. Sitting on the money line, San Francisco underdogs at home, plus 108. Total is sitting at 8 runs. Both these games have been super low scoring as of late. 3-2 wins for both of them as they split the first and second game in this series. Brennan Bernardino on the mound for the Red Sox. He's been pitching well. He doesn't pitch more than 2 innings, but still he's been pitching well, starting games well. Scott Alexander doing the same thing. So this is a tough one for me where you have 2 openers going up against each other, and I'm like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really want to read into the bullpen here because neither one of these bullpens have been anything to write home about. The Red Sox bullpen pitching well as of late, but on the season, still not all that great. Both these teams in the mid, 4.1 type territory. So I'm actually going to lean towards the over 8 runs here because I do think that we've seen, the lids on both these teams just a little bit too much. Now, the Giants, they've scored 1 run in like 32 games out of the last 10. Yeah, do that math. But I do think that this Red Sox team is waiting to score a lot of runs, and hopefully this is a spot in which they can get to that bullpen today because they didn't yesterday, right? So hopefully this is a time where they can go out there and score a lot of runs. But I'm not willing to really bet on the Red Sox because I told you guys in yesterday's video, and I've been telling you guys, this is a team that once the wheels fall off, which again, that terminology, got to put that on a shirt till the wheels fall off. Once the wheels fall off, the wheels will fall off hard. And yesterday's loss, though it was a close game, could be the start of that. You know what I mean? Like they're just riding down in their carriage or wagon or whatever, and all of a sudden, poof, like the back left wheel is off. Not all the wheels are off yet, but now they're like, so we got to see what this Red Sox team comes, because once the wheels fall off, they're off. So this is a very telling game for me here. So I am going to lean towards the over, but I don't really know where I come out on a side. All right, Dodgers taking on the Reds here. Dodgers getting back in the W column yesterday with a 3-2 win, keeping it low scoring though. Today they're trying out Michael Grove, and then for Cincinnati, Graham Ashcraft on the mound. Ashcraft been pitching well. In his last 5, he's got a 1.4 ERA. I'll give him credit there. On the season, 5.64, which obviously he had some bad starts, right? His FIP isn't even that crazy, so he is kind of had some bad luck there. But in his last 3 starts, he's pitching well. But more or less, you throw in that last 5, and you can see he had those 3 games in a row against Cincinnati, and then Cincinnati, which obviously, against Milwaukee, and San Diego. So 2 of those against Milwaukee, and what we know is Milwaukee does own Cincinnati, but Graham Ashcraft kind of kept those games scoring low too. So in those low scoring games, definitely inflated or deflated, however you want to look at it, his ERA. But nonetheless, I give him credit for pitching well. Michael Grove not pitching all that poorly. You look at his last 3 starts here, he has a really good ERA too, at 2.6, which is really good compared to his season average. So these 2 pitchers are pitching well, and I expect the public to be on the over here. I'm going to pass on that. I'm actually going to fade it and look at the under ever so slightly, and I do lean towards the Dodgers because I think they are the better team. -175 is what I'm looking at as the best price as of right now. That's only moved in the last hour or so from -170, so we may be missing our chance, but give me the Dodgers on the money line as well as the under. I think the public's going to be all over the over today, but I'm trusting that these 2 pitchers are actually trending in the right direction compared to what their lines are for the season. All right, Arizona taking on Seattle, and I go right to the pitchers in this one. You got Merrill Kelly going up against Luis Castillo. I'm trusting Castillo to step up and win this one for the Mariners and have a good game. But Kelly's also been pitching fairly well as of late. You throw out his second to most recent start against San Francisco, in which I scored a bunch of runs. His ERA is looking really good over those last 5. Now, we can't just throw it out. I understand that. But nonetheless, I do think that we have 2 decent pitchers here. So give the Mariners on the money line as well as the under. Total right now sitting at 8.5. I think this one goes kind of like we've seen this series so far, right? A 5-2 game and then a 4-3 game. We haven't seen anything jump over that 8 mark yet, and now we have an 8.5 line. I do like the under. Now I will say they've moved it down. It started at 9, it bumped up to 9.5, and all of a sudden, we do have 2 good pitchers on the mound, so I understand why, but it's moved down to 8.5. So Vegas is very particular where they are with these lines so far. And I do think, what was the game number, game number 2 was the 9.5. So yeah, they went from lower to higher. Now they're back down lower. They're really picking and choosing what these lines are versus, kind of keeping it steady. Even though it's right around that same number, it's kind of all over the place. So, little bit of line reading. I wouldn't make that change your mindset at all, but it means that they're pretty focused on setting the correct line for this game. When you see a lot of lines moving like that, some series, like you could see, the Dodgers, the Tigers taking on the A's, and you'll just have like the 8.5 throughout the entire 4-game series, right? It's because they're like, all right, whatever. That's what I would assume at least. So nonetheless, give me that under. I expect these pitchers to pitch well, and I like Mariners on the money line today as well. All right, we do have updated odds, even though they're not in the graphic for this one here. Money line, San Diego, -198 at home. Total sitting at 9 runs. I get it. San Diego has completely owned the Texas Rangers. 10-0 in their last 10 games. Obviously just dominating this series, but -198, a little bit too much for me. So I'm going to lean towards Texas just because you're getting +166. I don't want to trust Cody Bradford going up against Blake Snell of all people. So I'm probably going to pass on this game. This Texas team is starting to slide as well, not playing very good baseball. And yeah, the Dodgers just don't seem to be the team that they're going to beat. But even if you win 10 games in a row, at some point you could lose the 11th. So maybe that happens today, and we see some value here with +166 on Texas. Total is right now sitting at 9 runs, and I want to take the over on this one, but it just doesn't seem like Texas's offense is where it needs to be. So I'm probably passing on that as well, because I don't think that they go out there and say, okay, well, Blake Snell's pitching, let's go rock him. No, the dude's been pitching well as of late, which he kind of turned his season around. All right, guys, in terms of Baltimore taking on the Yankees in what is the actual Sunday night baseball, we are going to post a quick separate video on that on the channel. It'll probably come out in an hour or so by the time this one publishes, so make sure to keep an eye out for that and go check out if you are looking for our Sunday night baseball plays. And that is going to do it for today's show. Again, guys, go check out the Sunday night baseball video. By the time you're watching this, it most likely is up or is coming up soon, so keep an eye out for that. I know that we've said plenty of times, like, we're testing out doing that and whatnot. It's really fun to do a separate video and deep dive into a specific game, so yeah, I love doing that. So let me know in the comments of this video and that video what you do like in terms of schedule. Should we just give you the play here, or do you enjoy the entertainment factor? Because I understand, not to go on a rant here, I understand some people come through and just skip through and blah blah blah. Those are the guppies, right? But you know, guppies turn into fish sometimes and turn into people that do want to stick around. So I do want to appreciate everyone and what they contribute in terms of liking, even if you've just watched it for 2 seconds. If you've left a hate comment, thanks for the algorithmic engagement there. So nonetheless, let me know what you think of the format and everything like that in that video. Not to take up too much time here, but I did want to just throw that out there that we are still kind of testing, is it worth having a separate video for Sunday Night Baseball? I like doing it because it's a different style. We give player props, we throw other things your way, that type of thing. But yeah, nonetheless, guys, we'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Which I guess the next one will be pretty soon, but we'll also catch you in the normal programming in tomorrow's video, all right? Peace out.